G'day everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm sure most, if not all of you, are aware of a company called SmallRig. SmallRig are probably best known for their really affordable camera cages and video accessories. And I've been using the SmallRig cages on my Fuji cameras for a number of years now. But what you may not know is that they've recently branched out into a bigger range of video accessories. They've got accessories for rigging out your phone for videography. They also have battery options now for a range of different camera brands. And I'm also hearing really good things about their new V-mount batteries. And they've also released a range of lighting options. So today we're going to have a look at one of those. It's the RC120D COB LED light from SmallRig. Coming up after this intro. Okay, so before we jump right into looking at the light itself, let's just see what comes with it when you first buy it. So, really nice bag. It's really quite sturdy. It's a soft bag, but it's really well padded. So you could almost sit on that with the light in it and you would have no problems at all. Nice carry strap. And you get a little nameplate on the back here. So you can write your name and address and contact details there. Does also include a shoulder strap as well. And let's just open it up and have a look. So we've got a pocket at the top here, mesh pocket, so you can put whatever you like in there and you can see what you got in there. We get some nice SmallRig stickers and of course the instruction manual. And we've got the light itself. We've got a hyper reflector, and in this little section we've got our mains cable and power brick. Something to note about these, I do like that we've got included a little SmallRig Velcro strap there for keeping that nice and tidy. Same there on the power brick. Now the cable for the power brick is fixed, so if you do damage that cable you'll need to get a replacement power brick in total. One thing I do love is that there's just a little tag on there that says SmallRig. I don't know about you guys, but I've got a heap of power bricks in the studio and sometimes it's a little bit hard to know which one goes with which light. So having that little tag there is really quite helpful. All right, let's pop this onto a stand and I'll power it up and we'll run through some of the features. So something I probably should have mentioned right at the very beginning of this video was that SmallRig did send me this unit to test out and review. They aren't paying me, however, and they're not approving this video before I post it. Okay, so we've got the unit mounted on the stand. Now, as I mentioned, this is the RC120D, the D standing for daylight. They do make a bi-color version. And they also make a 220 watt version in both daylight and bicolor. This unit as it stands retails for around $219 US, whereas the bicolor unit is around $259, and then you can add around $100 more for the 220 watt variant. So this is more on the budget end, and you can tell that straight away by the construction of the unit. It is made with a high quality plastic, so there's not a lot of metal components to this. If you're looking at other brands to compare this to, a similar kind of quality would probably be the Gogo's SL series. They've got the SL100, which retails here in Australia for around about $260. This tends to retail for around $350, so it's a little bit more expensive, but it's got an extra 20 watt of power. So as I mentioned, fairly plastic all around, but does seem pretty sturdy. You probably just wouldn't want to drop it onto a hard surface. You'd probably get some cracks happening. One thing that I am pretty impressed by is the yoke. It's really smooth action and it tightens down quite well. You'd have to put a fair bit of pressure on there once you've tightened it to get it to move. So shouldn't be any trouble putting some fairly heavy modifiers on the front of there. So let's have a look at the Bowen's mount. We've got a little lever at the top here. Again, it feels like it's plastic. We'll pull that back and then we can take our little plastic cover off. Hard to tell whether this front plate here is actually metal or plastic. It does feel a little bit sturdier than the rest of the main body. And the COB unit here doesn't extend out too far from the main unit, so that's going to be pretty handy for using other accessories like spot adapters and things like that. All right, so let's just pop in the included hyper reflector. That clicks in pretty well. So there's a little bit of movement there, but certainly I've seen a lot worse than that. There's a little bit of a spring action there, so that kind of pushes it out and stops it from just rattling around by itself. You have to put a little bit of pressure on there to get it to move. Okay, let's fire it up and I'll spin around to the back here and show you what controls we've got. So on the back we've got a on-off switch just here. We've got two other dials, and obviously we've got our input from our mains adapter, and there's also a little reset button. So turning the unit on, easy flick of the switch. Now our display panel is fairly basic. It looks like an old school LCD display, and we've got our two buttons. First one on the left here is our intensity, so we can go from 0% all the way up to 100. So you can rotate that fairly quickly to go right through the range, or you can slow down and do it at single percent increments. The other button on the right here is to flick between our normal mode and our special effects modes. So by pressing that in, we get to highlight our selection and we can flick through our different modes. By pressing that in, we then switch over back to our intensity dial, and we can change the frequency of some of these special effects. So one other really handy feature is they do have an app to control their lighting units. The app is called GOGO. So the easiest way to find the app is to just scan the QR code in the manual. Doing a search in the App Store, I found it difficult to find, so just use the QR code and you'll find it easy. So as the unit is controlled just by the back dials here, we don't have a separate power controller which we can mount lower down in the stand. If you're mounting this unit up high, booming it above your subject, the easiest way to control it is going to be via the app. And also if you're controlling the special effects modes, it's just a little bit easier to visually see them in the app. So let's just fire up the app and we'll have a quick look. Okay, so now that we've got our app open, you can see the unit listed there. It's got a dedicated number, 7C607A. Not a particularly fancy name, but if you've got multiple units, you're going to be able to differentiate them via that number. If you quickly just want to turn the unit on and off, we've got a little button there we can use. Or if you want to get further into the features, we can just click on the main unit and it will bring up this screen. And we can see at the top here, we've got our intensity highlighted and we've got a slider at the bottom. We can just quickly and easily adjust the intensity. Now, special effects modes, we can just easily click across to there, highlight any one of the 9 that we want to use, and we can control the intensity at the bottom slider and also the frequency, how quickly that special feature operates, just by using this slider here. So just flick back to our intensity and I'll leave that set to around 20%. All right, so there's a rundown of the operation of the unit using both the app and the controls on the back. SmallRig do have a number of accessories that you can purchase separately for this unit. As noted in the box, it only comes with a mains power lead, but you can buy an accessory V-lock battery mount holder and cable for it. So if you do want to run it off battery, you can. So apart from the hyper reflector, which is included, SmallRig do make a couple of different sized parabolic softboxes and a lantern. But of course, being bones mount, there's any number of accessories that you can get to use with this unit. So one thing I forgot to mention earlier was that there is also an umbrella holder just on the edge here. It is on the mount on the left hand side of the yoke, and it does feel like it is metal and quite solid, and we've just got a little thumb screw here just to tighten that umbrella down. So a little earlier I mentioned the GOGO SL100D as a comparison to the SmallRig RC120D. So I wanted to do a little comparison just to measure what the output at 100% was from both these units. So I just set up my light meter on a stand 1 meter away from the front of the reflector. I've used the same reflector, the SmallRig one that is supplied with the SmallRig unit. And I set the meter to 100 ISO at 1/500th of a second and just measured what aperture reading I got from both units. So firstly, with the SmallRig unit, I got an aperture reading of f4.1. And then with the GOGO SL100D being 20 watts less light output, I measured a reading of f3.4.1. So those measurements stack up quite well, a little bit less output from the GOGO. But I thought I'd just mention a couple of other differences between the units, and that may help you decide which way you want to go if you're looking at this sort of price range. I must say that the GOGO is probably built a little bit better. It's a full metal construction, but running it at 100%, you can certainly hear the fan noise from the GOGO, whereas you can't from the SmallRig. It's a very, very quiet unit. So if that's something that is important to you, if you're doing a lot of filming in close to the lighting, then something with a quiet fan is definitely preferable. Now, the umbrella adapter on the GOGO is central to this main yoke, and there's no way of tightening that down. So if you're mounting the light above and you've got an umbrella coming straight down, it's just going to slip straight out. So that's another plus for the SmallRig. You've got a little thumb screw that can tighten that down. And the last thing, I guess the difference between them, something that I really don't like too much about the GOGO, is on the yoke you've got a ratcheting system, which you can hear there. So it's not as smooth an action as on the SmallRig. And there's probably a similar amount of give once it is tightened up. Okay, so there you go. That's a bit of an overview of the SmallRig RC120D. My impressions of it so far are pretty good. So I've had it for a couple of months and I have used it in a number of situations, but mainly just in conjunction with other lights. And the color temperature I've found pretty consistent with all the other brands in a similar price point. So there's no issues there. The overall construction being plastic is a little bit of a concern. So you just need to take care when using it. It is on the cheaper end of these COB units, so you can't expect high-end quality at that price point. It's really simple to use and the app makes it even simpler. This afternoon I've got a model coming in, so I'm going to put it through its paces, just doing some single light portraits and just testing out a couple of different modifiers just to see what sort of effects we can get with it. So I'll leave you with the behind the scenes footage from the shoot that's about to happen. Thanks again for watching, and until I see you in the next video, ciao for now. Okay guys, I'm back and I've got the lovely Mytharia in the studio. So we're going to do some portraits using the SmallRig 120D. Going to be shooting on the Fuji X-T4 with the 56mm 1.2, my go-to portrait lens. So we're just going to use this umbrella to start with in a couple of different positions and just see what sort of shots we can get. And then I'll probably switch it up to a different modifier. Alright, so one thing I might do now is switch to a softbox with a grid so we can get more of a dramatic light. Alright. Okay, so we just switched over from the umbrella to a 90 centimeter parabolic softbox with a grid in it. And you already can see how much of a big difference this makes over the umbrella. The umbrella just spreads the light pretty much everywhere. And a parabolic softbox like this, especially with the grid, it's going to give you a lot more control, especially on how much light is hitting the background. So we'll do some shots with this setup and then we can have a look at the differences. Right, there you go guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully you learned a little bit about that. That's been the SmallRig 120D, and as you can see it works pretty well as a single light for portraits.